Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the first session of our Marketers Bootcamp. Please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself and start connecting with the other attendees. As you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has turned the job search market upside down. Whether you're looking for your first job or trying to make a change, it's a challenging time.
Wait a minute.
We have created this two-part Marketers Bootcamp to help you navigate this uncertainty. My name is Esther Elkos, and I'm the Chair of Career Development and Networking Programs at the American Marketing Association, New York. First of all, we would like to thank our premier partner, Greenbook, a leading voice in the market research and consumer insight space, for supporting us year-round. AMA New York thrives in the center of the world's most influential business city, raising the profile of marketing, providing professional development and networking opportunities, and serving as a resource of marketing industry events and news. At AMA New York, we work every day to inspire, support, and celebrate brilliance in marketing. As a member, you have access to the most relevant and compelling knowledge base of data, tools, and people. For those of you who are not members yet, I invite you to join this dynamic organization to access essential resources in our library of how-tos, benchmarking data, interactive tools, and best practices. Expand your network and knowledge through a full schedule of events around marketing skills, career readiness, and emerging trends. Network among your peers and connect with leaders who help shape the future of marketing, and elevate your leadership profile by volunteering, providing expertise, and mentoring. We have plenty of events coming up in the next month, so make sure to check out the AMA New York events page and follow us on social media to stay tuned. Just an overview of the next events. On February 17th, Austin Belzak will conduct the second part of this Marketers Bootcamp with a webinar on how to get a job anywhere without applying online. On February 25th, Lisa will join Lisa for Rethinking Marketing in 2021 to learn new strategies based on leading industry research and business case studies. And on March 4th, a panel of experts will discuss the importance of marketing for startups, followed by a networking session so you can meet the panelists as well as meet in a small group discussion. So if anyone would like to ask any questions, please contact us for more information. We are about to begin this session, but before we do, just a brief reminder that we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end so you can ask any questions to Briar. And now, finally, it's my pleasure to present Briar Dougherty, a past presenter of both our first Marketing Bootcamp and the Career Readiness Summer Camp. Briar is the founder and CEO of Career Organic, a professional development company focused on one-on-one coaching, candidate branding, and bios and group coaching for professionals across multiple life stages. Without further ado, Briar, please, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Esther. I'm really happy to be here today, and I wanted to start by just giving you a little bit of background about myself. If you've seen me present, then you've probably heard just a small version of this before, but want to always start with you understanding who's teaching you, why I'm teaching, and kind of what you're going to learn today. So I actually had a start in New York City. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology and have an advertising and marketing degree from FIT, and worked and lived there for over 10 years, had a very successful career, and then made a career transition down to the Atlanta market on a whim. Really wanted to have a change of scenery and completely started my career over. And so what I'm going to be going through with you is not only from being a CEO of a career development company and a coach for a lot of professionals, but it's also having been there and gone through a lot of this. And so I do take a very grounded perspective in what I think is possible during the job search, that I want everybody to be able to leave with those tools, tips, and tricks. And so this presentation, and I'm going to start in a moment, this presentation is really geared toward the ATS and understanding it and then understanding why it's used, and then how we can actually manipulate our resumes to be able to better pass that and get better traction in our job search. So I'm going to start with my presentation, and I just want to say, if you have specific questions, you can put them in, I believe, the chat. I'm not sure if there's a Q&A section here, but you can put them in the chat. Esther is going to be compiling them during the presentation so that we can rock and roll right afterwards and answer any additional questions that you might have. Okay. Okay, so we are creating an ATS-friendly resume. So what is the ATS and how does it work? Because this is a question I get quite a bit. So it's a software that provides recruiting and hiring tools for companies. And so this is the system that actually scans your resume, parses it, and sorts your resume among all the other applicants. So when you hear ATS, it's literally a system that the company has bought in order to provide their either recruiters, internal hiring teams, better help and leverage their time, their effort, and the ability to actually scan and sort a ton of different applications. So why are they used? So number one, if you think about, because again, the question that I get a lot is, why do companies pay this money for this software, and why is this where we're moving toward? And the big answer is, we have a digital culture. And so we are posting a lot of job postings online. There's no more like classified in the newspaper unless it's a local smaller job. And we're utilizing a ton of online platforms to get our applicants in. And so we can now support hiring multiple positions all at the same time. So if you think of Coca-Cola or a Delta, some larger organizations, they might be hiring 1,000 new employees all at the same time and need the ability to actually onboard candidates in order to sort through them. And then it's sorting unqualified candidates. And I did put a note on the presentation so you can see, again, I'm in reality. I understand that some very qualified candidates are going to slip through this system, and it's not a perfect system, but it does help. So if you get 500 candidates for one role and you get to narrow that down to 45, yes, some of those 45 are going to be the top tier, and some of those extras that didn't get sorted might have been a great candidate as well. And that's kind of the gamble that companies take when they use an ATS. And then the EEOC compliance. So for larger companies, making sure that they are compliant with their hiring processes and being able to track that, super important. And then it refines the hiring pool for the internal and external teams. And so being able to sort through a ton of applicants all within a few minutes of getting these applications in is a huge tool. So when we do look at it, I want to kind of change the perspective that you might have against it, where it's like throw your hands up, oh, I have to go against this ATS. It is also working for you, because if you were number 499 out of 500 applicants and there wasn't an ATS system, there's no way you would have even gotten seen to begin with. So the ATS does work in your favor if you work with it. So you've probably already heard of some of these systems. So I just wanted to give you a couple of names. So Talia, Workday, Smart Recruiter. So these are ATS systems. And a small portion of what they do is actually scan and rank your resume. They do a ton of other it's a great resource for the hiring team and can keep track of your applications. There's a ton of things that it can do outside of just scanning and ranking your resume. So I just talked about ranking your resume. So if you don't know how it works, I'm going to kind of go through that in detail here, but it assigns your resume a score against the job description. So if we have a job description for a project manager, it's going to scan your resume for all of those keywords, and it's going to give it a score 0 out of 100%. So what you're working against is kind of this scorecard. So as you get more keywords, and I'm going to go through kind of the things I want you to pay attention to, your score will continue to go up. And so if you submit your resume in and it scores you at, say, 50%, and there's 25 applicants that score at 75%, those 75% are going to become that short list. Okay. Keywords. So these systems identify the keywords needed predefined. So the recruiter or the hiring team that puts together the job description, they'll put together the keywords that they're looking for so that it matches against your skill set and says you're a qualified candidate. And it weights these words. I'm going to go into detail on how it weights words. Okay. So the most important things to watch for on your ATS resume. So again, this is a big list, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed when you're looking at this. So I'm going to go through it, and then we're going to kind of cut down at the end of this presentation. You're going to actually see what it is that you need to pay attention to. But these are the main offenders. So you have to tailor your resume to the posting. So I'm not saying to use an entirely new resume for every single job posting, but it's tailoring it specifically to those types of roles. Then keyword optimization. So going through, this is something I see a lot where in IT, for instance, they use business sponsor instead of stakeholder sometimes. So if the role says business sponsor, we want to keyword optimize and put business sponsor and take out stakeholder. We want to use both acronym and long form terms when applicable. So if it's SEO, search engine optimization, somewhere on your resume putting SEO, somewhere on your resume writing it out. Using section identifiers. So your summary section, your skills section, your experience section, your education. This will actually help it parse and put that information into the category while it scans. Don't put information in your header or footer. I see this a lot where if you currently have your resume up in front of you and you have your name and say resume page 2 or your contact info and it's in the header, take it out of the header, eliminate that, and then put it in the main body copy. Just move it all the way to the top, shrink the font and move it over. So that's one offender. It won't actually come off the resume. It can't typically scan headers or footers. So then we're going to limit images or objects. So a lot of people put, on a CV. So if you're applying internationally, put your picture on it. It's absolutely within, what you should be doing for those hiring managers. However, in the United States, we don't use pictures. You also, if you have a lot of, if there's any designers on this call, what you'd want to do is if you have a logo, you want to make sure that it's small, it's near your name, it's probably the same size as your name so that it can not interrupt the scan, okay? And if you have your name multiple times on your resume, so on your second page, you'd be completely fine. It will pull your name and contact info off. So limit images and objects. And then last, limit column use. So I've seen a lot of people sending me resumes that have tables or some sort of like major columns put into it. Some ATS systems have no problem with it and it'll pull the information off and scan it. Some won't. And what that means is that if you have 12 keywords in a table and you submit that in and it won't scan it, all 12 of those keywords are no longer visible in that application you've just submitted. So it's an important thing to pay attention to. Okay, so now that we got all that out of the way, I want to get on to actually writing your resume. Hopefully you have a little better understanding about what's going on behind the scenes so that we can get to the nitty gritty of really writing your resume and getting it targeted for the ATS to pass. So how does it all work? So we've got skills and keywords, okay? So you'll see this is actually from jobscan.co. It is an ATS scanner, okay? And they actually have a corporate scanner that my company, Career Organic, uses. So we do this for every single client that we work with. We'll get the previous resume, or you can even download a PDF of your LinkedIn profile and scan it on JobScan as well. So a couple of things that you'll see. This is scanning at 72%. And so it's telling me your match rate should be 80% or above. I'm going to say this. I've worked with a lot of recruiters and hiring managers. Depending on the role, the number of applicants, and the timing, that 80% is not always, number one, attainable, and number two, the end all be all for you to actually get into the short list. So I'm talking from, say, 65% up is where you should be shooting, especially if you're making a transition and you do not have all of the experience. I would rather you see this, try and translate as much of that as you can without just putting keywords in there. Whereas a recruiter or a hiring manager, I'm looking at your resume and then I see you're not a fit anyway. So really do try and translate those keywords. So you'll see a couple of things here. There's resume word count. So it does count how many words are on your resume. This particular one is saying there's too many words for a US based resume. Advanced degree. So again, it will say bachelor's degree, associates, even a high school diploma. Sometimes they'll put that stipulation on the posting. I'm not a fan of it because I think work experience can outweigh education in some regards. However, that's what we're working with. So putting your degree and putting the university or college that you've graduated from, or even taking courses from, is going to actually equate to either points or will help you in that applicant tracking system and the ranking system. And then this one I wanted to go through is measurable results. So that third on the screen, this is, you're about to see behind the scenes. It says there are fewer than 5 mentions. So what this system is looking for is at least 5 metrics throughout your entire resume. And most of you are going to be coming from, say, a marketing background or transitioning into marketing. You're going to be looking at metrics from engagement, followers. You can even put a metric on a team that you've managed. So managed 5 graphic designers. That is a metric. So it's really just finding and being creative on being able to get those metrics inside your resume. Okay. So now this is how we don't lose our heads in adding in keywords. And we have our Career Cram community group on LinkedIn. And we just got this question recently is, how do I get my score up against the ATS without having to add every single keyword to it? And this is exactly the formula that I use internally with our team to up-level your resume and get it scoring higher without having to input all the keywords. So these are high impact. This means they're weighted larger, okay? So this could be 4 percentage points versus, say, a soft skill that might be 1 percentage point or 0.5 percentage point. So if we're thinking from a 0 to 100%, our goal is to continuously add in 4%, 5%, and keep going. So you'll see on this particular scan, sales, it's found 9 times in the job description. It's found 12 times on the resume. So it's maxed out. You're getting the highest value for that keyword. Cloud, it's found 6 times. So if we had cloud littered throughout the resume, it's going to continuously add more points as it scans additional times. So focusing on these hard skills, okay, this experience section, this driver section, these are the core functions of this job that they're looking for. So if you see they're looking for sales, they're looking for engineering, they're looking for operations, and they're looking for strategy. I'm going to go over this later. So just keep that in mind. These are core functions. So if we can hit these throughout the resume, you're going to score immediately much higher. Okay. Now we go down to medium impact. So soft skills. So we'll see excellent communication, collaborating, driven, insight, passion, influence, productive, collaborative. So my goal is for you not to have to put all of these in your resume. So if passion is not something that you're going to speak against in your interview, it should not go on your resume. Because you have to remember, this is the document that gets you the interview, and then you're interviewing against this document. So collaborative, I would definitely get that in. Influence, it's already there. So now we're maybe getting 1 to 2 points per word that we're adding in here. Okay. And then the low impact. So now these are kind of thrown in there. These are nice to haves. Okay. They've worked with customers, their team, partner, Google, great. So these should already belong in your resume. It's just looking at what they specifically use. So if they're using development teams, well, change your teams to development teams if it was a development team. If it's a creative team, use creative team. So those are the small fixes that you can make that will continue to up level that score. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to get into actually how do we take your experience and then create these keywords and get them onto your resume? Because this is where most people have trouble. And I want to break this down to simplify how this process should work, not only for right now for you, but for your entire career. You should be able to kind of go through this methodically and then come out the other end understanding what it is that you are going to be writing down. So transferable skills, why are they important? So transferable skills live with you for your entire career. So what you pick up as a 18-year-old, you might be utilizing as a 45-year-old. So understand that each experience that you've had and each role that you've had, we're taking all of that and we want to translate that into these new keywords. Okay. So how do we identify these skills? So some highly used keywords that I see a lot are communication, problem solving comes up a lot. Most roles have problem solving or critical thinking in them now. There could be stakeholders, relationship management. And so what I want you to see, and I'm going to point out number 3 to you. So problem solving, I have a hyphen in it. If the posting has problem solving without a hyphen and it's 2 separate words, use 2 separate words for that particular application. So I just wanted to point that particular one out because I do see it both ways and you want to pay attention because that's how the ATS is actually going to scan it and up level it. So the other thing is this, is that there's a lot of industry buzzwords. So if you are a career transition professional, you want to make sure that you're translating the buzzwords from, say, if you're coming from healthcare to working at a gym. Well, you might have patients as a word, and you have to talk about members from a gym's perspective. So remember, clients, customers, things like that will change depending on the role that you're applying to. That's the industry buzzword that will also come up as a keyword. Okay, so just pay attention to that as you're applying. Okay, so now how do we find which ones we have and which ones we need? Okay, and this is my formula. So number 1, we want to identify your target. So right now, if you're thinking about your resume, I want you to take a step away from it. And I want you to say, okay, I know I'm going after what? What is that role? If you're thinking in your head right now, I'm not sure what I want to do, then that's the priority. If you don't know where you're going, then any writing you do on your resume isn't going to be targeted and isn't going to pass the ATS because you're not able to translate your skills to that role. So know your target, okay? Then we're going to review the job postings. So I have an exercise that I love that you can actually go on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn for this specifically. So LinkedIn has an algorithm. If you start searching for a specific role, it'll start giving you more of that same role that you keep clicking on. So if you actually go onto LinkedIn, look at between 5 and 10 different postings that you like, you're going to start to see what they're asking for. It's going to make a lot more sense when you do this versus just going through one at a time. So seeing and collecting your data first will give you a baseline to work from. Okay, and then we're able to find the translation. So it's, how do we take what we have and talk to this new role or next role, or even if it's a lateral move, is it industry to industry? Is it a different industry that you're transitioning? And so how do we translate what you did into that next role? Okay, so I'm going to go through an example real quick. So we have a retail store manager transitioning to a customer success lead. So we're going to identify the core functions of the roles versus the role you want. So what did you do versus what you need to do? Okay, so retail store manager, skills and functions, so scheduling and people management, customer resolutions and satisfaction, budget or resource allocations, inventory. So remember on that first scan I showed you that had sales, operations, strategy. This is what I'm talking about, is those high level core functions that the role is looking for. So I've picked 4 out of this role. Now I'm looking at customer success lead. What skills and functions are they going to be driving? They need customer satisfaction experience, customer relationships, excellent communication skills, problem resolution, and critical thinking. Okay, so now we have these 2 different experiences, one that we had and one that we need to translate to. Okay, so let's see the translation. Okay, so finding this overlap. So customer resolution, well, now that new keyword is problem resolution. So we can talk about your customer resolution experience as problem resolution, or vice versa, depending on which role you're switching. Okay, customer satisfaction. Well, customer satisfaction and excellent communication, we can pull out of those experiences. Resource allocations, that might translate into critical thinking, like how did you allocate those? How did you allocate spend? How did you justify budget? Well, that's critical thinking. Okay, and why do we do this? This is how you are going to, number 1, score well on the ATS, but number 2, now we're translating experience into the verbiage, the language that the hiring manager is going to resonate with. Okay, I'm going to give you another example. Okay, operations manager transitioning to project management. So again, I've identified 4 or 5 different core competencies or core functions of an operations manager. It's people management, scheduling, process improvements, efficiency and productivity, process implementation. So this is what my experience was, and now I want to become a project manager. Project manager, the roles that I'm looking at have people manager, managing timelines, owning scope of work, and budget and resource management. So now we've got these 2 roles. And again, this is my past experience versus what I want for future experience. And we do the same thing, okay? So again, this is kind of a method to follow. If you can identify the core functions of what you've been driving across your career and in those roles, and then lay it out for what are these new roles looking for. So if you're going from marketing manager to marketing director, there's going to be some gaps in there, but I want to understand out of those director roles, what's that addition? Is it managing a larger team? Well, maybe in your MBA program, you led a student organization or you helped as a lead in a presentation. Then we can pull those experiences to equate to the transferable skill set and put that on your resume. I hope that makes sense. So this is to lay it out so you can see it physically in front of you and then start to make those transitions with keywords and what we need under the bullets. Okay, so then we've got professional summary and narrative. So defining what type of professional you are and what you drive. And this is how I teach it. And it's funny because some people, they ask, what does it mean to drive something? Okay. And so I'm going to answer this. is first, I want to know what type of professional you are. So if everyone in the room is in sales, well, what type of sales? Is it SaaS sales? Is it, construction equipment? Is it medical sales? Like, what type of professional are you? If you're in marketing, are you a manager? Are you an email marketer? Are you an omni-channel marketing, integrated marketing specialist? What is it that you actually do? What is your role? And this is typically dictated by the roles that you're applying to. So keep that in mind. Then it's, what do you drive? So in the very first sentence of your summary, you should be talking about, like myself, if I was going for a board position somewhere, I might say that I'm a CEO and COO in both nonprofit and for-profit environments, okay? So immediately, that's the type of professional I am. But what do I drive? So now I have to think about, as a career coach. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I really want to work with you, they're like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. It's, well, I'm a global career coach, and I provide services that help professionals and business owners grow in their career. Okay. So it's, what am I driving? I'm driving growth for individuals in, as a business owner or a professional. Okay. So we've got to translate the jargon. So a lot of you might have very specific, and I see this a lot, you might have very, very specific internal terms that you use. So in an organization, I've seen companies use all kinds of fun nuggets, whether it's, well, we call this rocks. And it's like, that's fantastic, but what does rocks mean to the rest of the world? So make sure that everything that you're putting on your resume equates to the market versus the jargon that's internal. The additional piece is this, is that if you are moving from one industry to another, like I said earlier, it's, if you have patients and you need to say members, again, that's industry jargon. Okay. So we want to make sure we're looking at that with a fine-tooth comb so that we understand the translation. And this is going to prep you for your interview, because you need to speak to the hiring manager with the same understanding. Okay. And then what do we do with that? We apply that to your narrative. So it's for networking, it's for profiles, CV or resume, cover letter. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're going to say, so in your summary section, we're going to put, what type of professional are you? We're going to put, what do you drive? And then it's going to be for who or what. And then what do you utilize to do that? Are you leveraging new software? Are you building teams? Are you developing a culture that helps grow the organization from the inside out? Those are the steps of creating a summary that's really going to resonate with somebody. The summary is also the perfect place to put your keywords. So when you have your keywords listed out, you can actually put those directly into your profile section. This is the best place to do it, because we have then a profile section that you can manipulate for each posting. And we have a skills section, which we went over, that goes over, say, 9 to 12 different keywords, and you can manipulate those. What I don't want you to do is this, is that when we're in your experience section, changing out each and every bullet to hit keywords is going to fatigue you after 3 applications. You're going to say, Briar, you are full of nuts and not doing it. Can't do it. I'm done. I don't want to apply anymore. So I'm reserving keyword focus to that summary section and to the skill section. When we are talking and translating from one role to another, yes, we need to talk about, so if I was talking about because I actually ran a health and fitness club in New York City. It was a Crunch Fitness down in Soho. It's no longer open if you look it up. But I worked at the Lafayette location. I worked at the 59th Street location as well. And my experience there was expansive. I started at front desk and I was a general manager when I left. And so I had tons of experience, but I went into the salon and spa industry and I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue. In my resume, I had to translate from members to clients, because you don't have members in the salon and spa industry. So all of my bullets, I did take the time to translate from members or membership to services, to clients, client success, things like that in my bullets. What I didn't do is have to translate every single bullet for every single job posting. I was only focused on those core findings. So I'm actually going to go back up very quickly and show one more time this. So this is what I was focused on in order to lead how I was going to write my bullets. So I was an operations manager and this is what I had. Then I want to become a project manager. Okay, so these are the things I need. Then I need to find what is the translation. And then you write your bullets. So if you see this and you do this properly and just write it out and look at what is it that was the main accountability of those roles. And then what is the main accountability that I'm seeing on this job description? And job descriptions will tell you this. Must have, these are the requirements. And then typically they have this is a nice to have, like, you know Tableau, you know Adobe Suite, whatever it might be. That's lovely. Okay. And that's job specific. But those core competencies are going to, if you do the exercise across, say, 5 to 10 different roles, you're going to see the common thread. And that is going to be what we put in this list under your next role is, oh, I'm seeing people management all the time in almost every role I look at. Okay. Something about managing timelines, something about owning the scope of work, something about budgeting and resource management. It's going to be written differently in every single role that you look at. So you do need to kind of think through that theme and write them down and then see what that duplicate looks like. But then those bullets are all focused on, okay, well, if I had scheduling, well, then that's managing timelines. Well, let me talk about how I manage timelines for something. And you're going to pull the appropriate experience into the resume. Okay. So again, this is all for your summary. This should be utilized in your networking. This should be utilized in your profiles, on your resume, and in your cover letter. So getting the driver, getting the type of professional you are, and again, specific to the role, because you do have to have the role title in your resume to pass the ATS and get a higher score. So if you haven't had that role, reference the role, reference working with that role. As long as the ATS scans, I know this sounds really interesting, but as long as the ATS scans the role in your resume, it will mark you as having had that experience. The same thing goes for your education. If for some reason you have not graduated and you need a degree in order to apply to this role, you can actually put, so say Bachelor of Science, University of Syracuse, okay? And you can put pending coursework on your resume if you've taken classes. No one should be discounted for the classes that they've already started. Life happens. I had a client who, he had a baseball scholarship. First year in, injured, benched, lost his scholarship, had to leave college. Well, he took a year's worth of courses before that had happened. And so we put that he was not getting calls, not getting seen, had tons, like 20 plus years of experience for the roles that he was looking for. And we put pending coursework because he could technically finish that coursework and get the degree, and immediately started getting seen by the ATS, and then would be able to talk through that during the interview process and explain it. So that goes over I wanted to leave a lot of room for questions and the ability to go through this. I do want to point out though that we are building our Career Organic community on Facebook and our Career Cram community specific for career transitions on LinkedIn. It is an active community that we're answering questions. We just, again, had a great question about, job scan and how to up-level ATS rankings. Feel free to join those. They're completely free. And we do answer questions on a daily basis. So if you do need an additional support and you want a free resource, these are great areas to go for. So I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm sure there are quite a few. I've seen some stuff coming through the chat. So Esther, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I am happy to answer.
Yes, we have plenty of questions. Let's get started with, can we use graphics or bullet points, or does it create any problems?
You don't want to use graphics for bullet points. You can use some stylized bullet points, but if they're in the, so if you're using Georgia, Garamond, Calibri, like very basic font styles, and they have something that looks a little nicer, totally fine, but you don't want to use symbols and you don't want to use graphics. It could completely take off the entire line that you're submitting.
Okay. Do you recommend a resume checker website to test with?
It would be jobscan.co, so I can type that in. Yep. So that's what my company uses. I have a corporate account, so I don't know what I sometimes they offer like free 5 scans if you join their email list. It's worth it to just see what it does. There are so many nitty gritty things from the ATS that it scans. And the one thing I do want to caution is that if you're going through that process, don't overanalyze the report. What I went through in this presentation is specifically what up levels that ranking without you doing a ton of work. So we've used it. We have to use it, unfortunately, with, you know, just how much the ATS is used now. 66% of large companies use an ATS system and 35% of small businesses use them now, just to give you reference on how much it is utilized.
What would you say is the percentage that you need to get notice?
So it is relevant to that particular job posting. So if you're applying to Google and there are 550 people that have applied to that role, I'd be shooting for 80%. If you are applying and there are 70 applicants, between 65 and 70 should still get you noticed. So again, it's just relative to, you know, what is happening and, you know, how coveted the role is.
For those in transition, should they use their prior measurable results, even if they're not relevant in marketing?
Metrics are metrics. They will scan and they will give you an up level. So absolutely. What I will say is this though, if you're transitioning to marketing, I would focus on metrics that will help either, you know, team leadership, how many clients maybe you had to interact with on a monthly basis. Like those types of metrics are going to help. And the additional piece is this, is that because of COVID, what I've seen in the industry is that metrics that measure time in a good way, like I was able to create a new process in 2 months working with, you know, limited resources or something like that. That is a great metric for someone to see right now because people want marketing professionals that can move quick. So time-based metrics are absolutely an asset nowadays where they used to not matter at all.
And in regards to those metrics, those numbers, should they be numerical value or spell it out?
You want the number? I'm a big fan when I'm reading a resume as a hiring manager. I like to see the $sign, the number, and then the K, the M, the MM, you know, depending on what you're writing. It's really easy to find your metrics that way. When you write them out, they blend into the resume. So.
And what would you say in regards to a job description that has inaccuracies? Would that be an issue if it doesn't match the resume that actually has the word spelled correctly?
So inaccuracies. So it depends. I would not spell it inaccurately on your resume though. There is a trick that you can, I know we're recording this and this is going out on YouTube, so I'm gonna bite my tongue, but all right, I will say it. So there's a little trick that you can do where if for some reason it is misspelled, spell it right on the resume, but at the very bottom of your resume in white font color, you can put that word, how they have it spelled.
Great, thanks for the
They
tip.
won't see it, it'll scan. It'll scan. So that would be one way to bypass that. Again, I don't typically say that, but that would be a way to get through that so that you do know it's scanned well for the right word.
Great. Then there's a question about the summary. Would you include the I, or is the pronoun assumed throughout the resume?
Third person, great question. So resumes are written in third person. No I's, no me, no my, no our. We don't reference the company as being working there. So we talk very ambiguous about that. The reason is, number one, the cover letter is where you're personal and you're talking from first person because you are directly sending them a message. And number two is when you talk from like a team perspective, like our team at Coca-Cola, as a hiring manager, I'm like, well, do you want to leave? Or, you know, are you really happy and getting kicked out? Like, for some odd reason, when you read that as a hiring manager, a red flag goes up. And then I did see one very quick one. The dollar sign is not a symbol. So a symbol would be like, you have a logo, that's a symbol. Like an image, a JPEG, a PNG, something like that. That's what I'm talking about from a symbol perspective.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Another question that just came in, should your resume have periods after each bullet point?
Preference. I love seeing periods for some odd reason. So when I write resumes, I write periods. I have other writers on my team and they prefer no period. So it's a preference thing. It's not going to come as a mark against you. So if you like periods, great. If you don't like the look of it, you can take it off. It's not going to hurt your application.
Should you include your address if you're not local, or does not including your address on a resume make the ATS
So
more
address is always going to be city, state, or city, state, zip. Most ATS systems are now just scanning for city and state. You can though, so I have clients who live in like major suburbs, almost rural areas, and they're applying internally into a city. You can put the city, city and state, and it's completely fine. It's that when you actually apply via like the background check, right? So when you're filling out that proprietary documentation, you've made it that first round, that's where you'd put your actual address anyway, and they'll scan that. So it's not going to hurt. You just need an address on there in general. I had someone move from Atlanta to Salt Lake City, and he put a Salt Lake City, Utah, and that was it. And it's scanned. But you do need to be prepared to say, I am currently relocating, or I am currently, if that's the case. So, but.
Okay. Then in regards to resume gaps, does the ATS reject or low score applications and resumes based on this?
Say that one more time.
If the ATS rejects or has a lower score because of resume gaps.
Resume gaps. So like gaps in your employment?
In between, yes.
So that's not going to come up until the recruiter. So the only thing that the ATS is going to be able to say is how many years experience you have. So if you have enough gaps that you only have 3 years experience, but you've been kind of in the market for 10 years, it'll only showcase 3 years of experience. And then when the recruiter looks at it, so say you get shortlisted and you get a 75% score, the recruiter looks at it, then they're going to see the gaps. So it's, and I do, this, unfortunately, I was kind of going through the ATS specific today, but bridging that gap, there are multiple ways to do that as well. And some like key lines. So yes, you can do that. That will actually buy back that time as well. So like if you were laid off due to COVID, you can put like the COVID layoff and put those dates. It'll buy back that time as work experience on the ATS.
Okay. Good to know. Let me see a few more questions. Is there any type of program that catches or removes the extra space after a period for those that use who learn to type on typewriters?
Say that one more time.
Is there any type of program that catches or removes the extra spaces?
Between a period and the word? It should be Word. If you're using Word, update your Word version because it tells you almost everything. The only other software that I love using as a writer is Grammarly. It catches everything. I mean, every single thing you could possibly think of, it's telling you, and it'll give you the suggestions, so you could literally click it. So.
Great. I missed this one before. Do you have any examples of summary sections that you can provide?
So one thing that I did not say earlier is that I actually have templates, ATS Compliant Templates that I'm going to be giving Esther to send out to you guys. It'll be a link. You do need to sign up for it. It is in a Kajabi system. So there's no kind of maneuvering past that. But if you sign up, I'll actually have the presentation in there. I have other presentations in there, and it literally walks you through writing that ATS compliant resume. But there are summary sections in the example resumes. So you'll be able to read through those. You'll see the skill sections. You'll see some of the bullets, all of those things. So you can actually manipulate them and download them for yourself and free to use. So we'll be sending that out when she sends her recap of this.
Correct. Does it matter if your resume is in PDF or Word?
It depends. So typically, no. Some systems will only allow you to upload a Word version, but I like PDF. So if it allows you to submit the PDF, and like on my scanner with JobScan, you can submit it via PDF and it will completely scan the document like it's Word. So only some of them don't. So I would have both versions.
Another question about the format. What is the optimal margins for the main body of the resume?
So I go as low as about 0.5, 0.5 an inch. So it's more, JobScan will tell you if you're out of margin. I haven't seen a resume not scan. So I'm not don't quote me on this, but most resumes will scan even if you have some weird funky margins. It just likes to have a specific margin, but most resumes we write are not 1 inch and 1 inch on the side. It's like, it just looks like a very long document at that point. So we actually do expand some of the margins. They scan fine. I haven't had any issues with that.
Great. I think we have a couple of minutes for a few last minute questions. Here we go. Might have been answered, but does the number of pages matter?
Great question. So if you have less than 10 years experience, I highly recommend you get it on 1 page. Highly recommend it. Anytime I've seen a resume for someone who has like 5 or 6 years and it's 2 pages, I'm like, you better be a rock star. I mean, you know, some sort of like college experience and internships out the wazoo and all of that stuff. So 10 or less, 1 page. If you have more than 10 years experience and you can fill at least, I'd say like a third of that second page, I'm okay with you having a second page. But a lot of people say recruiters don't read the second page. Guess what? We're talking about the ATS first. So if we're talking 3 audiences, right? We've got to pass the ATS, then we've got to pass the recruiter, and then we got to get handed to the hiring manager to review that resume and interview you. So number 1, if you have more experience and you're able to put it on the resume, it's going to scan really well. You can also put a lot more keywords into it. So from an ATS perspective, 2 pages is totally fine if you have the experience to warrant it. So that's my take on it. And from a recruiter perspective, this is what you want to think. Everything that is most important goes on your first page. Get it on your first page. So that's the core. So as a hiring manager, I've read 3-page resumes. I'm not a fan. unless you have a CV and you're applying internationally, stick to 2 pages at the most. But I will say, I've gone through so that I can see the career trajectory that somebody's had. So it has actually helped me want to interview other people when I do see that growth.
And how many years back should be listed on a resume?
Great question again. So this is going to depend on the role that you're transitioning to. So for instance, if you are transitioning to a role where you haven't been a manager, say you've been in creative and now we're transitioning back into management, but you have management experience from 15 years ago, I want to see it. So I would put that 15 years and then I would cap it. And there's a great way that we do. So we'll put your early career summary or early career history as a header down at the bottom. And then you just put your roles. You don't have to put dates. You could just put the roles so that you can see the progression. So for me on my resume, I wouldn't have front desk, MOD, assistant manager. I just put general manager and then from there up. So relevant. We don't need to see back to, early career, but some of the major roles that show your progression.
So as a follow-up of that question, if someone has skills relevant to a new job, but it's been 10+ years since it was used, how should it be added to the resume without listing jobs that are irrelevant to the new job?
So that's part of what I was going through with the bullets. So we need to translate all of your experiences from every single role should be translated into what you're targeting now. So for me, if I have a big operations background, operations and sales, huge, like P&L management, all of that stuff. If I'm going for a career coaching role, say with General Assembly, okay, career coach, like I want to be a career coach with them. And I'm going to talk about building teams, working in the culture, developing, programs and incentive programs. I'm not going to talk about managing a P&L at all. It's not relevant. So I'm taking, this is what I had. Remember, I'm going to keep going back to that slide. This is what I had experience in. This is what you need. What's the translation? So you don't actually have to go back 20 years. I guarantee you've been doing the same thing over and over again in multiple roles. You just don't see it yet.
And another connected question, does the ATS algorithm prioritize the order of education, work experience, skills, headers, and their descriptions, or is it not that smart?
No, well, not yet, I'll say. So we don't know what's going, it evolves literally on a monthly basis. Like our scanner, they'll add new criteria, but as of right now, just the headers help it pull into the right section. And I use headers as in those category identifiers, skills, professional experience, all of that, not a true header for the page. So like if you're a recent grad, education should be on the top. So it'd be your professional profile, your education, skills, and experience versus seasoned professional, your education should be at the bottom. It's just going to say education and pull that content off, wherever it is.
Great. Well, it's close to the time. So just to close, I would like to thank you very much for this eye-opening and insightful presentation and for providing so many useful tips. Thank you all for attending this event. I hope that you have learned how to optimize and build a better resume for today's ATS recruiting software and how to determine your resume's audience. We will be sending tomorrow a post-event survey, as well as the examples that Briar mentioned.
It'll be in link format, just letting you know.
The link
you have to press.
Correct.
Yep.
As well as this recording and the slides. So please, I encourage you to complete the survey. We would love to hear your feedback so we can keep improving our events. And don't forget to register for the follow-up webinar next Thursday at the same time. The founder of Cultivated Culture, Austin Belzak, will share his strategies for getting interviews in your dream job without applying online. So thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.